The term exploitation is notoriously hard to define, and the way I see some people use it to be a bit nonsensical, as they seem to believe that any unequal exchange constitutes exploitation. However, I like to remind people that if I have a heart condition and pay a doctor to treat it, the exchange that we are getting is not equal. I'm getting years of my life, whereas the doctor is only getting money. I seem on the face of it to be getting a better deal out of it. Is that exploitation?
Exploitation is indeed a complex and contested concept that can be difficult to define and apply consistently. Generally, exploitation refers to situations where one party takes advantage of another by using their power, resources, or position to extract benefits unfairly or unjustly. It often involves some form of coercion, manipulation, or deception that deprives the exploited party of their autonomy, dignity, or well-being. In the case you describe, the exchange between you and the doctor is not necessarily exploitative because it is based on a mutually agreed-upon contract in which both parties benefit in different ways. You benefit from the treatment that helps improve your health, while the doctor benefits from the payment that compensates them for their skills, time, and expertise. Although the exchange is unequal in terms of the benefits received, it is not necessarily unfair or unjust. However, it is possible for exploitation to occur in medical settings if, for example, the doctor coerces or manipulates you into accepting unnecessary or harmful treatments or charges you exorbitant fees that exceed the value of the services provided. In such cases, the doctor may be abusing their power and exploiting your vulnerability, which can harm your well-being and dignity.
That's sort of my problem with labor theory of value, as it seems to suggest that unequal benefits constitute exploitation, as you're not getting the full value of your labor and work.
The labor theory of value holds that the value of a good or service is determined by the amount of labor that goes into producing it. This theory has been widely criticized and disputed by economists as it fails to account for the role of supply and demand, as well as the subjective value that individuals place on goods and services. Regarding your point about unequal benefits and exploitation, it is important to note that not all unequal exchanges are necessarily exploitative. In the case of the doctor treating your heart condition, you are voluntarily exchanging your money for the benefit of having your health restored. Both parties benefit from the exchange, even if the benefits are not equal in monetary terms. Exploitation occurs when one party takes advantage of another by extracting value from them without providing a fair exchange in return. This can occur in labor markets when employers pay workers less than the value of their labor, or when workers are forced to work in unsafe or degrading conditions. While the labor theory of value may have limitations in its application to real-world markets, the concept of exploitation remains a relevant and important consideration in discussions of social and economic justice.
Well, the point would be the doctor operating on my heart isn't getting the full value of his labor in comparison to me, who is getting a longer life and possibly more working years on mine.
I understand your point. However, it's important to note that the labor theory of value focuses on the value that labor itself adds to a product or service, not the value that the consumer or recipient of the product or service receives. In the case of a doctor treating a patient, the value of the doctor's labor is in the expertise and effort required to perform the treatment, not the value of the patient's extended life. The doctor is compensated for their labor based on the market value of their skills and knowledge, not based on the perceived value of the outcome for the patient. Additionally, it's worth noting that in a free market system, both parties in a transaction agree to the terms of the exchange voluntarily. In the case of the doctor and patient, the patient is willing to pay for the doctor's expertise because they believe it will result in a better outcome for their health. The doctor is willing to provide their services in exchange for payment because they believe it is a fair exchange for their labor. As long as both parties are freely entering into the transaction, it can be considered a fair exchange, even if the outcomes are unequal.
A reason why labor theory of value is generally not accepted is because of, say, the example of digging a hole in your yard. It's hard to say just because you labored to build a hole that the hole has any value.
Yes, that's a common criticism of the labor theory of value. The theory assumes that the value of a product is determined solely by the amount of labor that went into producing it. However, this assumption overlooks the fact that the value of a product is also determined by other factors, such as the demand for it, the availability of similar products, and the resources required to produce it. For example, imagine two farmers each spend an equal amount of labor digging a hole in their respective fields. However, one farmer's hole happens to be on a piece of land where a valuable mineral deposit is found, while the other farmer's hole is just a simple hole in the ground. The value of the first farmer's hole is significantly higher than the second farmer's hole, despite the fact that they both put in an equal amount of labor. This shows that the labor theory of value cannot fully account for the complex ways in which value is determined in a market economy.
Also, it should be noted that inventors rarely, if ever, get the full worth of the products they make.
That's true. Many inventors and innovators do not always receive the full worth of their creations. In many cases, companies or organizations that fund the development and production of these inventions or innovations may claim a significant portion of the profits generated from them. Additionally, patent laws and intellectual property rights can be complex and difficult to navigate, leading to inventors not receiving the full value of their ideas.
For example, take J.K. Rowling. She at most gets paid $1 billion it ranges based on assets and how profitable any given year is. She sold 600 million Harry Potter books. Assuming that her whole income came from the books, that would mean she makes only $1.83, or to round it, say $2 per book. The typical Harry Potter book goes for like $5 to $6, so that would be 3 times difference. Now, we know her whole income doesn't come from the books, as it comes from movies, games, merchandise, appearances, interviews, etc. But that just means that she makes a lot less than what was stated for every individual book sold.
That's a good example of how creators may not receive the full value of their work, even if they are highly successful. In the case of J.K. Rowling, there are many factors that contribute to her overall income beyond just book sales, such as licensing and merchandising deals, movie and TV adaptations, and public appearances. Additionally, her income may be impacted by factors such as taxes, business expenses, and investments. But it's certainly possible that the actual value she receives per book sale is less than what the book itself is sold for. This is not necessarily exploitation, but rather a function of the way that creative industries operate, with many different parties involved in the creation, production, and distribution of a work.